All right, this is the first topic in lesson 62, and the topic is called square roots and higher roots. Now, before we get into this, there's a couple terms that you need to understand. First of all, not only terms, but a review of what some of the symbols stand for in algebra. So before we actually get into a couple examples, remember if I had this symbol and say 4. Now this means the square root of 4. And that's different than if I had something like this, because this symbol right here, that's a division symbol. And notice the square root symbol has a little hook on it. So to the left there, I have the square root of 4. And what this is asking is what number times itself. Notice square means 2. So what number can you multiply times itself to get 4? And we would get 2. Now you also have situations where if you have a number in the hook. So say I have something like this. This would be asking for the cubed root. So if there's not a number, that means square root, but if there is a number, then it's asking for that particular number. So in other words, here with the cubed root of 8, it's saying what number can you take times itself 3 times and get 8? Well, I know that 2 times 2 times 2 is 8, so here that would be 2. Another example might be what would be the cubed root of 27? So what number could you take times itself 3 times and get 27? Well, let's see. How about 2? 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. That doesn't work. So let's go a little higher. Let's try 3 times 3 times 3, and that is 27. So the cubed root of 27 is 3. Now, another a term that I want you to understand is what we mean by integer. Now, an integer is unlike fraction or decimal. An integer is simply a number that's not a decimal or a fraction. So, for example, 3 is an integer. 10 is an integer. Negative numbers are integers, just so it's not a fraction or a decimal. Those would be considered to be integers. All right, let's take a look at example 1. Now, example 1 is more of a calculator-oriented problem. And it says use a calculator to determine to 5 decimal places the square root of 18. Now, when I do that, or when we do that, there's a little background on calculators. And really, this is a lesson where you can, kind of communicate with one another and talk about how you would use a calculator to find that. When you're doing this type of problem, we want to use the symbol on your calculator that looks like this. Okay, the square root symbol. Now, the thing about it is a lot of calculators are a little different, so I can't just say that it's going to be just like that symbol. If you have that symbol on your calculator, sometimes that symbol will be right on one of the keys. Sometimes you might have to hit this button that says second, which means a second function. On some of your calculators, there's 2 symbols on each of the keys. And the top symbol would be one that you don't have to hit the second function. The other symbol, you might have to hit that second function to get it to work. So really, this is just an introduction. I wouldn't get too wound up here with if you don't understand how to use your calculator, because we'll work with those in class. But on most calculators, you're just going to you're going to find that symbol, and you're going to punch in the square root, and then you'll just punch in 18. And on the calculator that I'm using, if I took, and I'm doing that right now, if I took 18 and hit the square root symbol. Now when I do that, so I punched in 18 and then I hit the square root symbol. And I get a big long decimal, so 4.242640, and it keeps on going. Now they want this to 5 decimal places. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I need to make sure I round. So a little review on rounding. So this is the 5th place. What number's to the right of it? If that number to the right of it is 5 or above, this number would go up 1. But since the number to the right of it, which is 0, is not 5 or above, this number stays the same. So my answer is 4.24264, and that would be rounded to 2 decimal places. So anyway, this is just a very brief introduction. We're going to work with these quite a bit in class where we can get a little bit more hands-on with the calculators. All right, let's get to the main part really of this lesson, which is without calculator use. And let's do one of these here. Let's take a look at example 2. It says without using a calculator. So on a test, a calculator is not going to help. It's going to be of no aid because you got to be able to show how you're getting your answer here. So it says without using a calculator, determine between what 2 consecutive integers. Now consecutive means 2 numbers that are one right after another. So for example, 2 and 3 are consecutive, or 7 and 8 are consecutive. And again, remember we reviewed what integers are. Integers are numbers that aren't decimals or fractions. So I want to figure out where the square root of 10 would lie. Now, I know that 2 squared is 4, right? I know that 3 squared is 9. Now notice I haven't been able to put the 10 in between any place because 10 isn't between 4 and 9, is it? Let's go one more. Let's see, 4 squared is 16, isn't it? So 10 lies between 9 and 16. So between what 2 consecutive integers would the square root of 10 lie? It would lie between 3 and 4. And that is my answer. The square root of 10, whatever it may be, is going to lie between 3 and 4. And it's probably going to be a little bit closer to the 3. Because the 3 squared is 9. And notice 10 is very close to 9. So it's probably going to be like a 3.1 or a 3.2 compared to a 3.9 or a 3.8, which would be closer to the 4, or in other words, 16. So it's kind of hard to get the hang of this, but we'll do another example. Sometimes you don't have a calculator and it's convenient to want to know where the square root of a number lies without the aid of a calculator. All right, let's do one more example. Let's take a look at example 3. And again, without using a calculator, determine between what 2 consecutive integers the square root of 27 lies. Now square root, so now I'm squaring numbers here to figure this out. Now I know that 3 squared is 9. I know 4 squared is 16. I know 5 squared is 25. Notice I'm getting closer to 27. And finally 6 squared is 36. And just to review, why am I squaring these? Because this is the square root. Now, where does 27 lie? Well, 27 lies between 25 and 36. So, the square root of 27 must lie between 5 and 6. And that's it. That's your answer. You don't have to go any further. The square root of 27 would lie between 5 and 6. Now, if just to reason this out a little bit, would the square root of 27 be closer to 5 or would it be closer to 6? Well, it's probably going to be closer to 5 because 5 squared is 25, and notice we have 27. It's going to be closer to 5 than it is to 6. Maybe a 5.2 or something like that. So the topic here was square roots and higher roots.